Hey there, I'm just going to go through and quickly show you the solution from last year's SAC. So to start off with, I'm just going to go ahead and build the interface. I'm just going to time lapse this just so it's a little bit easier so you don't have to worry about watching the entire thing. Alright, now that we have our interface already, I'm just going to go ahead and just link all these up now. So, new tab, oops, new tab, open. Fantastic, so now that we've got all of our connections made here, might as well just go ahead and close that. From here on, I'm just going to go ahead and declare all my global variables here. So that's anything that's going to be used in the program. First of all, we'll start with our struct. I'm going to call this reading. And I need to give this codable keyword. Biggest things I need here is I'm going to have to include all the other things I need to add. So let's start off with a date. I'm just going to have as a string. Next, we're going to need a time, which I'm going to also have as a string. My next one is going to be a level. So let's make that level a float. And finally, we're going to have our period, and we'll have that as a string here as well. Excellent. Fantastic. So now that I've got these here, next thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to create an array that I can hold all my readings in. So I'm going to have a var. I might just call this readings for simplicity. I'm going to make this an array that holds a reading or reading types. And we're just going to start off that with making that blank. Cool. So at this point here, we've got our global variables, we've got our inputs, we've got our outputs. Now we need to be able to add the things we need for our table view. So at this point here, it's going to be UI table view delegate, and it's going to be UI table view data source. This one here, there we are. Now, once we click away, it's going to say that it needs to confirm. We will add these stubs here. For simplicity, I'm just going to cut that and add that to the bottom down here. I'm going to make a note here. I'm just going to say table view functions below. That way I know exactly where they are. Fantastic. This one, we just need to return our readings dot count. So this way we know the number of rows in section is going to be the amount of readings we have in our array. And then we'll go ahead and have our table view here. I'll take from some pasted code. Fantastic. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste this here from the other page as well. Now, it's going to yell at us for something to return here. Rather than writing a big complicated string that we can use later on, I'm simply just going to create a method here. So, being as this is something that is given from our reading structure here, I'm just going to go and declare it here. So I'm going to say func2string. I'm going to give it no arguments. So this is meaning that we don't have to have anything given here. Now, within this one here, I'm simply just going to return I'm going to return the date. Then I want to return the time. Level. And period. One thing as well is it's going to say we need a non-void value here. So with this function here, I can use a arrow like so. And this arrow is basically just going to say, okay, when this runs, this is going to be the thing that's going to be returned. So I'm going to say I want that to return a string. This method is basically saying that for this function, or as we declared a function, toString, we need to return a string, in which we're stating that it's being returned here. When we return a date, we return a time, return the level and the period in one string here. So as we go down here, rather than this numbers.indexPath.row, I'm going to change that to be readings. So indexPath.row, and then we're just going to say dot toString, like so. Fix up the spacing. And they'll return like so. Fantastic. So now that we've got our table view that's going to be populating, we have to go now back to here and copy these two to our view did load. Just down here, like so. And make sure that you give it the right name. So I believe mine was called TBL Readings. TBL Readings, excellent. So we've got our table view returning the number of rows dedicated to the amount that we have within our array. We have our cells set up here. We have our data and our delegate set up here. Finally, I want to get a swipe. So going through here, we will copy this one here and we'll put this one down here as well. Rather than numbers, I need to call this my array, which is readings. So at this point here, with our table view all set up, well, for basic functionality at the moment, we're going to go ahead and add some of these buttons in. So I'm just going to make a quick note here, and I want this to be my add button. So function add button to add a record to the array. So let's bring back, oops, wrong one. Let's bring back our storyboard and let's drag over our add button here. And while I'm here, I may as well just drag over the other ones as well. So now with all this added in, I'm going to go ahead and close this just to give us a little bit more room to see here. Perfect. I'm going to go over and just check out the pseudocode to see exactly what we need within this function now. So we've got our readings, and to add to our array, we need to check if all of our input fields are not blank. Then we need to see if it's fasting. So we have this variable, we're going to give it called fasting, and then if it's selected to be non-fasting, then the period will be non-fasting. So let's do this check first. We're just going to say that if our txt date dot text does not equal that, double ampersand for end txt time dot text does not equal double blank, and txt glucose dot text does not equal double blank. Then we want to do the things we need to do. Else we will have some code here later on when we create our alert function. So we can just leave this for later. So once we have our existence check here, we need to go ahead and start creating the data to be adding to each one of these readings. So going back to our pseudocode, we can see here that we have a variable called fasting. So I'm just going to have var period. I believe it's called period. It is. Make that string and make that equal to fasting. Then if our seg period dot selected segment index double equals 1, then period is going to equal to double check, should be non-fasting. Yep, non-fasting. Excellent. So at this point here, let's add a reading to the readings. So we need to have a new reading object being created. So I'm going to go ahead and just call that var new reading. This is going to be a reading type, and this is just simply going to equal to reading, but I want to give it all the data here. So a date, a time, a level, and our period. So we can go down and select this one here, and then we'll have each one of these given from our text inputs. So we can straight just make this one txt date dot text, make this time txt time dot text, make this level a float, which means we need to typecast it to be a float, and then txt glucose, I believe I called it dot text, and this period is actually just going to equal to the period that we've given here. It's going to yell at me, and it's going to yell at me entirely because we need to have all of these forced unwraps. So I can click on this one and let's go fix, and let's go fix. This is where we need one here, and then period should be fine here. So we got ourselves a new reading. Now let's go back to our pseudocode. Now that we've got a reading, we can add readings to readings, and then we have to sort and update the table view. So let's go to readings dot append, and then we want to append that with our new reading we've just created, like so. And our sort function, we'll just make a note that sort functions here. Going back to our pseudocode quickly, we also need to update our table view at this point. So I'm just going to go tbl readings dot reload data. The other thing we need to do is we need to have these levels calculated and displayed here as well. So let's make a few variables down here. Let's call this oops, var total level. It was called total level. It was. I'm going to make that a float, and that can be equal to 0 to start with, and then var, what's the next one? Average level. Var average level as a float, and that's equal to 0 as well. So now we've got those two variables. It says that we need to go from reading to the end of readings to calculate all of our total levels, and then we need to calculate our average levels here. At this point here, we can go ahead and we just want to simply go through and just loop through every single one of those. Now that we've got our total level and our average level, we'll fix that typo. Now, we can go ahead and we can just loop through our entire array, and then once we loop through our array, we can just go ahead and we can just create these total levels here. So I'm going to say for a reading, in readings, then I simply just want total level to equal itself plus our reading dot level value. At this point here, if I can spell it correctly, average level is just going to equal to total level divided by the readings dot count for the amount given within our array. It's going to yell at me because this will be given as an int, this level will be given as a float. So let's just typecast that. So with these two here, you can just go ahead and go LBL average level, and that one's going to be .text. It's going to equal to average level. Now, if I want to be able to go and change this so it has a nice format, I can change that into a string, give format here, and then using format, I can give it the format I want to give it as within these two brackets here, and state what I want to transform over here. So for this one here, I might just say that I want it to be percentage sign being what I want this to be, then 0.2, and then F to be formatted as a string there. Fantastic. So now that we've got our average level here, we need to be able to find out exactly how we are able to display our average category. So if we have a look through here, we've got this one here. We need to work out this one here. So for this to display, we need to work out whether we have a fasting more often or a non-fasting more often. And then we need to work out exactly within these ranges what to display. So what we can do is we're going to go ahead and count the amount of fasting. So var fasting count as an int, and we need to work out how many non-fasting we have. As an int, 0, and fix that typo up as a capital I. So within these counts, we're just simply just going to say that if our reading dot, what do we have here? I believe it was period. Yep. Is equal to fasting. Then we simply just want fasting count to add 1 to itself, else we're going to have our non-fasting count equal 1 to itself. And fix that one up here. So now that we've got that one here, what we should do now is we need to be able to say exactly how we're going to display what we need to display. So if I can have my fasting count that is greater than my non-fasting count, then I need to work out what category I'm going to display here. So I might also make another variable here, and I might just call that category display. string, like so. So if we have more fasting counts, we need to have non-fasting counts, then we need to display these values here. So we can say that if average level is less than or equal to 6, then what we want to do is we want to say that our category display is going to be equal to healthy. Else, if our average level is greater than 6 and our average level is less than, what value was it, 7? Might just make it a little bit easier to read with some brackets here. Then we can simply just have our category display equal to pre-diabetic, and then else we can simply have our category display equal to, what was the value? Diabetes. Oops. Like so. Fix up these errors here. Then we can simply just reverse it for this if statement here. So make it else. And I'm simply just going to copy these here and then just change the values for what they need to be. So let's have a look. So 7.8 and 11. Perfect. Then I simply want to have my LBL, average category.text, equal to the category display. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and just give this a run and see how it looks so far then. It's been a nice chance to do some sanity checks and just to see what is working so far. Perfect. So let's input some test data and see how it looks. So let's make this 2024, make this 03 and 25. Let's make this for 12:30 p.m. Quickest level, we'll make that 7.5 as fasting add. Let's go ahead and increase this a little bit to 11.3. We'll make this for maybe 2:30 p.m. Add that. We can see how this is changing down here accordingly. Fantastic. So with that working so far, let's just go ahead and we'll go ahead and add some search functions now. So I'm just going to make a note here and just say search functions, sort functions below. Might try to keep everything together. So that way I've got all my button functions here. And I'll put them just about here. So we're going to go back and we're going to go ahead and copy all that code from here. So biggest thing we have to realize is that when we're having our array here, we need to make sure that these types line up with the type that we've gone ahead and created. So rather than being an array of ints, we need it to line up with the array given here as an array of readings. So we will come down here and make sure that we're giving it an array of readings. We're making sure that this function is going to give us back an array of readings. Same thing for this one down here. Need to make sure we have an array of readings, both here. So this is going to yell at us for a few different things here. The way that they're trying to compare everything. So within this here, simply just saying that we're going to go through all of the array. From here on, it's going to try to have something compared to. At this point, it says that it can't be compared because the way that a reading works, you can't compare those two. So we need to think about what we're going to compare here. Before we have our selection, we might just for now use date, just to see how this works. So what I want to do is as we're going through, we're going to compare these two dates, like so. And as we're going through a quick sort, we're going to do the same thing. For our X here, we want to compare that to the date in each one of these given here. It's going to yell at us here for one thing as well. And that's because we need to make sure that these are also given as reading types. Whoops. Like so. So, at this point here then, we need to decide when we're going to call each one of our sorts. I'm going to come back to this note I made before, and then I'm simply just going to say if readings.count is less than 10, then I want to use our selection sort, and our array we're going to use is going to be our readings array. Else, I'm going to head and use a quick sort using readings. And we need to say that readings is now going to equal this here, and then reload the table. So we need to make sure that we have our readings equal to this here. As if we have a look in our function below, this arrow here is saying that it's going to have to return an array of a reading type. We can also see it down here when it says return array. That is indeed returning an array of a reading type. So with that one here now, that's going to sort whenever we go through and we go and add something new to it. It's only going to sort by the date, however. So there is something we're going to have to do here to check for that. So one thing you could do, there's a couple of methods you could do with this one here. One thing you could do is you could have something like this. You could have a global variable that's going to start off as our sort type. We'll have this given as a string. And I'm going to start off by calling this default value, which is going to be date. So I'll start by calling this date. Now, what we need to do is we need to have a check to see how we're going to insert this date to say how it's going to go ahead and how it's going to sort things. So with this one here, what we could do is I'm going to be a bit clever with this. And what I can do is when we have our sorts here, rather than writing a brand new sort, I'm simply just going to go ahead and within our function here, as it takes a reading, we can also change it. So it also has to take something new in there. So I'm going to put a comma in there. And I'm also going to have to say that as it goes through, it's going to also take a value called sort type. And that has to be given as a string. So whenever you run a selection sort, it has to be given an array here, but also has to be given a sort type. And what I can simply do is with this sort type here, this will dictate exactly whether this is going to be for a date or whether we sort it by our level here. So, in that case, so now we've got our sort type here. What we can simply do is when we get to this point here, we'll be taking our date. I'm simply just going to do this one line below here. I'm going to say if our sort type equals date, then I want to go ahead and I want to compare this with our dates. Otherwise, instead, I want to sort it by our level. Like so. I can do the same thing down here as well. And that I will need to have a sort type. That's going to be taken as a string. Oops, without that one. I could do the same thing as well and give a little bit of room here so it's easy to read. We have our pivot. And then from here on, I'm just going to say if sort type equals to date, then do this one here. Oops. Else, instead of sorting by the date, we want to go ahead and we want to sort this one by, what was it, level? Okay, so from last time, we're going to have a notice we have an error coming from here that it's saying it's going to be missing an argument for our sort type. As this is recursive, it's going to keep asking for it. We are going to need our sort type within this here. So what we can do is as we have our sort type coming through here and we've checked for it, we need to be able to say how we can give this value here. One thing I am going to do to help that is I'm going to go ahead and make a global variable, and I'll fix these two up in a moment as well. So I can have my global variable here as a sort type, give it a string, and make that as a date here. When I call it, I want to make it so that this is going to take in a sort type, and that sort type is going to equal to this sort type string given here. So I'll make that sort type here. I want to do the same thing for sort type. I want to make as the sort type I'm defining up here. This is going to be a bit important in a moment when we get to change and modify this as well. So coming through, I want to make sure that when we have this here, sorry, wrong one, for our quick sort, we're going to make sure this is also given here as sort type, and our quick sort is given here as sort type as well. Fantastic. So with our sort functions here, we now have a way to see whether things should be sorted and display how they should be sorted. going into our storyboard, the big one we need to be able to change is sorting on whether it's sorted by these two here. So what we can do is we are able to state that if we have our segment sort by as a certain thing, so whether it be sort by date or sort by level, we're going to change this variable here. So I'm going to go through and for that here, I'm actually going to make this into a new function. So I'm going to drag this in and make this a new function as an action, and then I'll call this one, so seg type change. So this action simply just going to be whenever this is changed or moved. So now, whenever this is changed or moved, I'm just going to see if my seg sort by, so selected segment index double equals 0. Then if it is equal to 0, then I simply want to make my sort type equal to date. Else, my sort type is going to be equal to the other one I called it, which I believe should be level. When I do this, I also want it to sort. So I can go ahead and I can give that a sort in a moment here, using this same one we used before. If you'd like to as well, this could be something you may want to make into a function, which we're going to have a look at later on. So we could make this into a function as well, if we want to repeat the code somewhere else. So now if we run this, we should be able to push that button, and then it is going to be able to change exactly how this goes. See here with some data being inserted, I can sort by a level, which will sort my level in ascending order. I can sort by date, which will sort by my date in an ascending order here. So quick editor's note, just be sure to also reload the data once you've gone through and sorted this. So you can use this by using your Tableview's name. So this might be TBL readings dot reload data. So now that that's done, we just have a few things left that we have to go through and create. So we're going to have to go through and create our saves, our loads, and then it's just a bit of tidying up after that. So we can go ahead and we can have our save function. I'm just going to go ahead, make a quick little comment for later on. Save and load file functions below, just to make it a little bit easier for myself to find later on. Now we'll have a save function, which we're going to take from this page as well. There we are. Let's pop this one here into this here. I'm going to go ahead and make this function. I'll just call this one func. And I'll just call this one save file. Put all of this straight into here. And then I have to make sure that I encode the things I need. So I want to encode readings. Making sure that we change all of these to what we need to. I want to make this readings.json instead. exactly like that. We will need to make sure that when we have our structure, that our struct is given as a codable type here as well. So really make sure that this is given as a codable type so we can make this into JSON. So with our save file here, we want to be able to code this to our button. So we have our action here for button save, which I can simply just go ahead, I can just call this save file function like so, and that should work as is there. We also need to make sure that we have our load function given as well. So we're going to have our load function here. So the same thing, I'm just going to go down to my save and load functions as I've given here. Going to make this a load function and then call this load file and then paste that here. For this one here, again, we need to make sure that we call it exactly readings as we've done so before. So that way we've got everything matching up perfectly. May just need to do some minor formatting. So just some minor line breaks and such, and then we should be fine. When we have our load function, one thing we want to load on is I would recommend having this load happen on our viewDid load. So it will load immediately as soon as our file is finished, as soon as our application opens. So as soon as our application opens, it will load that file immediately, and then it will save our file whenever we click on our save button. So now that we've got our save files, our load files, we've got our sorts working now. Only other things we need to add in now are our alerts, and we need to be able to also add in our clear buttons and a small few different formatting things as well. I'm going to have this alert here. I'll probably add it down the bottom here like so. So I'm just going to go ahead and say alert function below. Again, nice and easy to read, so I know exactly where they are. So I'm going to make another function here called func, and we'll say alert pop up here. I'm going to change this in a moment, but I want to be able to just put all this in here for now. Okay, now that we have our alert pop up here, we can change a few things here. So we can say what we expect it to come up with, or what's needed within here. So I might have an argument that I want to have a title given to this, and that I also want to have a message. This title is going to be a string, and this message is also going to be a string. So what's going to happen is I now want this title to simply be title, and I want this message to be message here. So that way when I put this somewhere else and this calls it, it's going to give a title and a message here. We have our yes button here. So what we want to do is we want to change what this yes button is going to do depending on the title that we give it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that if our title is equal to, we'll say delete all. We then want to go ahead, if that is selected yes, then we want our readings to equal to a blank array. We then want to clear all of our things. With this one here, it may yell at you here as well, so you may need to give it a self.readings, just to say that we want to use the readings that is declared at the top within our class. So we can now go ahead and have txt_date.text equals blank, It's probably L2 saying it's going to need a lot more selves. So we can just go ahead and we can just fix all these here. Like so. We are able to make this into a function that will help a little bit easier later on. So we'll have a look at more to that later on as well. So we now have this delete all, which is going to delete everything from there, and it's going to reset everything there like so. We can just go ahead and we can just change and add these alerts further up. So what we can do is when we scroll up a little bit further, I want to go back to this one here where I said I was going to add my alert function code to do. So this one is going to be that if the text is blank, if the date is blank, if the time is blank, if the glucose is blank, then it's going to do this. If otherwise, it will give us the alert. So we can have our alert here, and I'm just going to go ahead and say alert pop up, and we're going to give this the title of, say, blank values, and this message will be you cannot leave any values blank, and save. Within this one now, it means that whenever we go ahead and we try to leave any blank values, this is the pop-up we're going to get with the title and the message. As we go down here and we have a look at our alert function, we can see again that it's expecting a title as a string, a message as a string as we gave it, and then the title given for our alert is just going to be here, given as title and message as it's received from here. So now we need to say with a delete all title and what's going to happen when this happens here. So what we can do is we're going to have this here, and we're going to use this for our clear button here. So it's going to clear all the previous records and everything here. I'm just going to go ahead and say alert pop up, and the title we're going to give it is going to be the title that we said we're going to check down here. So delete all is going to be the title here. So I might make these capitals just to make this nice and stand out. So I'm going to copy this here as our title, and then our title is going to be here. As so, delete all. Our message will simply say, do you wish to delete all readings, not records, readings. So the moment we push that button, it's just going to come up with this pop-up here. If the yes is clicked, then it's going to clear everything. If the no is clicked, then it's just going to act like it has before. So I should really, down here, also have our TBL readings dot data relay data here as well. And make sure we use the self keyword. So as we can see, this is all here. I might just put in some dummy data in each one of these. And then as we go to clear, we can go to delete all readings, yes. And then this will update here and clear everything as is supposed to. So at this point here, I'm going to have a bit of a cleanup at the end, just to show exactly how I would go through and make this all ready. However, until then, we have to make sure we have finally the ability to change the colors given within each one of our different cells. So what we need to do is when we have our table view function, we can have this cell here. What we're able to do is we're able to have our cell under our table view here, and using cell dot, we can change the background color here. So we simply have this cell.background color, and we're able to change that using this other method here. So it should be UI color, and then our UI color is going to have our red, green, blue, alpha. So we're able to change our color entirely by going ahead and having a value and then dividing it by 255 for our color range there. So we have this 155 out of 255. We might just have this as a 10 out of 255 as an example, and we're going to have this as a 30 out of 255. Our alpha is just going to display how harsh that color is going to come through. Let's have that as 0.03, so it's not too hard. So if we run this, and then as it runs through, we should see that our cell background colors are going to change accordingly. So now we can see that we have our color that's indicated here, and that's given so. Only thing is though, we need to be able to change this so our color is given differently according to what these are here. So what we can do is, as we come back, we can go ahead and we can just decide what our colors are going to be depending on what our readings are. So what we can do is we can go ahead and we can have our readings at the index path dot row, and then we can simply say that we have our period. So what we can say is we can simply have something saying like if our readings dot period is equal to fasting, then we're going to do something similar to what we did before. That if our readings dot period equals fasting, then what we can do is we can simply take the values we had before when we had our averaging, and we can simply change a color according to that. So as we've calculated these here for our fasting count and non-fasting count, we can do the same thing. So we can have these average levels. We can just say that if the level is less than 6, greater than 6, and less than 7, or else, we can simply just have these values here. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy all of this, and I'm going to edit this in just a moment. So scrolling down, I am now going to have my table view function here. And then what I want to do instead is I'm going to change this so we have our readings for each index path row dot level. Then we simply are going to change our cell background color, and then we want that cell background color equal to UI color. Make sure that it is something that's going to autocomplete for us, as is red, green, blue, alpha here. As this one is supposed to be healthy, we might make the red pretty low. We'll make the green high-ish, so we might make it about 200 out of 255. Make this blue about the same out of 255. And then make this alpha 0.3, so it's not too hard. We're going to do the same thing repeatedly through here as well. Fantastic. So now with this one here done, I really want to neaten this up a little bit because I feel this is really hard to read, and we really enjoy having readable code. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to just do a couple of things here. So what I'm going to do is I want to have this one here I'm going to make that a constant so it's easier to read. And then I want that to equal to, so let period equal this one here, and then I want to let level equal this one here. So now I can simply just change all these over for period, and just simply just change all these over here for level. We're going to do the same thing as well with these cell background colors in a moment. So I want to make each one of these colors into a different variable. So that way we can just simply just say equals to that color as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this one here. So I'm going to add this up here with my global variables. I'm going to let this, I'm going to call this teal color as a UI color. I'm going to make this equal to this here. I'm also going to have a, I believe it was like an orange color or a yellow as a UI color equal to, I'll change that one in a moment. And then let red color as a UI color equal to, and I'll change that in a moment as well. This is why we can change all these to just read this here again, just for readability and ease as well. So as we've come through, I'm just going to go ahead and just change this one here. I'm going to say this one's going to equal to teal color. I'm going to cut this one here and make this equal to orange color. And then finally, I'm going to need one for red color as we go down here. So I'll cut this one and I'll make this equal for red color. I'm going to do the same thing here. Teal color, orange color, and red color. Now, if we run this, so as we can see now, the colors don't quite line up, but just as this is a test, that shouldn't be too bad. At least we know that they are coming up as different colors, which is always great. 20, make this 30. And make this something like 13.5. Now as we add this, we can see this is coming through as this red color here. Well, we need to see what this orange is going to be rather than the green. And we also need to apply this same logic to these down here as well. But in the terms of functionality, we are able to have these colors through. They are sorted by date and by level. We're also able to add all of our data here. Our clear successfully has a delete all message. So the only thing left to do really now is just to clean it up and have our final result. Finally give a final test here. So let's go 20, 24, -03, -13, make it for 5:30 p.m. Gonna make this glucose level, make it about 14.3, and we'll make it non-fasting. We'll add this now, and now we can see that we're sorting by date on the top. We sort by level. It's working here as it is. We can save that, and then as it's been saved, we can go ahead and have a warning as well that we want to delete all of our readings. If we go to add without anything here, we'll have our blank values saying you cannot leave any values blank.